Today, on the 19th episode of the DTF Printing Podcast, we're talking about the benefits of lean manufacturing, having an internal sales management system, and bringing DTF in-house. Welcome to the DTF Printing Podcast. I'm Adrian Palmer, Editor-in-Chief of DTF Printing. Before we get into this episode, I would love to get your feedback. You can always email me at adrian@dtfprinting.com for topic ideas and speaker suggestions. And don't forget to like, review, and subscribe. If this is your first time listening, be sure to check out all episodes at dtfprinting.com/podcast. On today's episode, I'm talking to John LaRoy, CEO of Apparel Redefined in Crestwood, Illinois. So John, Apparel Redefined was founded in 1970 and then reinvigorated in 2007. And you've been in the industry for 18 years. So my guess is you were part of that change?
Yeah, in 2007. So yeah, I came on board in 2006. When I say on board, there wasn't much to be on board. It was only three of us. And fresh out of college, didn't really know what I wanted to do, but wanted to stay close to the game, essentially. You know, coming from college athlete, you know, playing baseball and hockey. I got back into coaching right away out of school, and just kind of like I was substitute teaching at my old high school and coaching high school baseball. And it's interesting, at the time, Under Armour and Nike like really started releasing moisture management fabric, and south side of Chicago, a lot of Catholic parochial schools. And how do you recruit talent? I mean, it started even like back then, right? And you had to be, you know, one of the ways we've kind of figured out how to recruit talent was you got to have the cool stuff, right? And at the same time, I was figuring out like, hey, my dad's buddy owned a screen printing company, and he owned a sporting goods store, and he's like, hey, I really need help. Would you mind helping me out there? And I'm like, sure, what the heck? I'm, 22. If I fall on my face in 5 years, I'll figure it out. So I kind of did like a 6-month like trial where I just worked there and like learned as much as I could. And then I'm like, okay, well, I could kind of leverage this to get Under Armour and the Nike stuff, and then start putting the high school's Marist High School stuff on there to attract better talent. And after about a year, I'm like, I really like this. And, I've always wanted to own my own business. I just didn't really know in what. So let's give it a go. And then we just kind of like unknowingly kind of started carving our own niche, right? It just got immersed in the industry. I mean, at the time we were only doing screen print. It was old school. Like I said, it was founded in 1970. So we had like 6,000 old school, like tiny hand stretched wooden frames, and just loaded with chemicals. But like the old, owners would hand staple everything. So pull out all the staples. And I'm like, we got to move into not even the new age, like just the Middle Ages. Right. So, replaced all those with like static aluminum, got our first auto, and just kind of grew from there. And then really just started like, hey, we're going to be an athletic decorator, and really started carving our niche there and added to the team. Now we have 60 plus employees. We moved into our current facility. Our first facility is only 2,500 square feet. We're in about 27,000 now, and we're in the process of building a new 60,000 square foot facility as we speak. So yeah, it's been quite the journey in 18 years, but yeah, that's a little bit of the backstory.
Well, congratulations on that expansion. Okay, back to you playing in college, high school, baseball and hockey. Were you paying attention at all to the apparel you were wearing? Did it matter to you then? Or was that kind of just brought on when you were a little bit offered this position?
Always paying attention. I mean, look good, play good, right? Like, especially like as you got closer to 17, 18, where you're like real. I mean, this was before social media, way before, we didn't even have cell phones. Sounds like we're talking like the 1930s, but this is like late 90s, early 2000s. And, of course you were concerned with what you look like, and you wanted to be, comfortable, but functional. You know what I mean? And that, especially in baseball, because I mean, that was like old school material where it was really heavy, all tackle twill, which is fine. And it's actually starting to come back now. But and interesting that you bring that up. Like, look at what's going on in Major League Baseball right now. Like, what a disaster with Fanatics and all that type of stuff and Nike. But Yeah, it was definitely concerned, because you're looking around all the other teams in the conference, and there's an arms race at the time, like who's got the coolest stuff. Nike and Under Armour at the collegiate time weren't huge players. It was like some of the old school brands, Russell and Rawlings and stuff like that were pretty dominant in baseball, Bauer and hockey and Warrior. But yeah, it was always something like, this looks cool, but not really having more than like, I wish I knew how to make it. You know what I mean? It was just like, I want to look cool. That's all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really was more looking cool. Was the feel of the shirt ever important? I mean, what all goes into it now that you're on this side of it? Maybe even does that knowledge help working with your customers, knowing that I played this sport, I know what it feels like, and I know what it looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we still play competitive 12-inch softball. So like now it's like, it's got to look good. It's got to feel good. And it's got to wash good, right? Like I think the rush into dry fit, that you're almost seeing the market come back a little bit, right? Where literally every t-shirt people would have maybe 6-7 years ago was 100% poly. Every 5K, everything. And then like you started to see a market correction. Like it's still very prominent because of sublimation, right? Like everyone's doing all over printing, sublimation. But the feel and the fit of that dry fit fabric is never going to improve beyond what it's already improved right now, right? Like it's still 100% poly. It's a plastic material. It actually retains bacteria. Like even the best antimicrobial stuff that's out there is still a chemical and it's a spray. And then they start to stink, So you've seen like more towards blends. You got your higher cotton counts. Sustainability is a big part of it too. I mean, as much as they say that they're recycling the plastic, it's still plastic, and it's like, what are you putting on your body 24/7, 365 with all of this plastic? There's something to be said about that. So long story short, what I'm getting at, you're starting to see, the tri-blends were huge, especially in like the CrossFit community. And now it's really kind of exploded, and you got your CVC cottons. And it's more of that, like, if you took the logo off a shirt or a jersey, uniform, whatever, and you close your eyes and like, you're going to pick the one that feels the best. And if it also happens to have like a great logo on it, it's a win-win. So, I think feel more than anything, especially in sports where it's on your skin, is extremely important. Because everything's gone lighter, right? But there's also a dichotomy there. You look at Major League Baseball, they went super light, and now the uniforms are see-through, right? And it's like the pendulum swung too far. It feels cheap because it is cheap. There's also that that issue of like the race to the bottom is also, you're going to sacrifice quality. And Nike got the contract for Major League Baseball, and it's kind of embarrassing, right? As a decorator myself, who we decorate for on-field apparel for mostly collegiate sports, and we see our stuff on TV on Saturdays, and it's like, we're proud of it. And we see some of the stuff, like that would never pass our quality spec, and it made it on the field of Major League Baseball. And it's crazy to see, but we know the pain, and we also know that it can be better. So,
yeah. And I guess, I'm not super familiar with baseball, at all. So maybe you can kind of explain that to our listeners, that contract, what that kind of looks like. And I guess why you're thinking it doesn't look so great when you see it on TV.
Yeah. So two things there. So like, if you ever had an authentic uniform, whether it be football, baseball, basketball, like, and you have it hanging in your closet, if it's authentic on field, it's twilled, right? Twilled is that like super premium sewn fabric on top of fabric. It does add weight, but it's like the expectation as a kid or as a fan, like you just inherently know that this is the real deal just by seeing it and feeling it, because it's got that super premium look and feel to it. Well, in the effort to drive down cost and also sell function, they're starting to remove the twill from a lot of the on-field, even like the, at the top level. But in doing that, they've lost some of that brand recognition and brand promise that you're getting, because like you walk around, you're going to be in Chicago soon. You walk around any of the stadiums, you'll be out there and you can buy and knock off authentic jerseys for like $50, but they're still sewn and they're still twilled, now done overseas. But yeah, the feel of it has been enhanced because it's a lighter weight material, but they've had to sacrifice the decoration. Because if you have a really light garment and you put a heavy twill on it, you're going to feel it, right? So again, it's that dichotomy of the yin and the yang, and that pendulum's, I feel like, swung too far in terms of function and less about quality. And to bring it back. So if you look at like side by side, and it's all over the internet, you look at an MLB uniform prior to the Nike contract and an MLB uniform now, first things first that sticks out, the actual twill of the name is smaller. It used to be a 3-inch letter was standard on the back of the jersey. Now it's down to a 2. Now that's a cost saving things, but it looks ridiculous because your eye is accustomed to seeing what a baseball jersey has been for the last essentially 50 years, right? The material is see-through. Like, it's not good for some of these guys that don't wear a lot underneath their pants, especially in hot weather. And it's ripping. Like, I never used to see a major league game where pants would rip like intra-game all the time. And it's happening more than it ever has before. And they're blaming material, they're blaming manufacturing, they're blaming spec. So it's interesting. It's happening at the highest level.
I joked in a meeting earlier today that I'm going to more baseball games, I think, than I have in my entire life. I was at a Cardinals game last week, and I'm going to a Cincinnati Reds game tomorrow. So now I'll just be really paying attention to what they look like on the field. But I'm curious, with all of the NIL, name, image, likeness, that's, becoming available to college athletes today. As a former college athlete, what's your thought on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time coming. Being a student athlete, regardless of what level it's at. I mean, I was just a D3 athlete, but it's a major time commitment, and you don't have the time to go get a standard job. Your job is athletics in school. So the opportunity to go out there and actually make some money, because especially at the highest level, the TV deals and coaches, there's college coaches making way more than NFL coaches. It's pretty crazy. And they're only successful based on the success of their talent, but also the student athlete. Like, the coaches are very important, but they're nothing without the student athlete. So to be able to share in some of that revenue, I think is outstanding, because for a lot of people, the vast majority, not a lot, once college is over, you got to go get a job. And sometimes, again, that pendulum, that dichotomy, it swings so far into athletics because you think that you're going to the pros, and an injury or talent, whatever happens, and you don't make it. And you really weren't focused on your studies. And you don't have any real world experience, because essentially since the time you've been 5 years old, your full-time job, especially now because it's so specialized, like literally 24/7, 365, you eat, breathe, and sleep sports. So you don't really have any real world experience. You get out, and it's going to take you some time to land on your feet, find a position, go back to school, figure out what you want to do. And without any money, it's really hard to do. So I'm wholeheartedly, I support it. The one thing that I'll say that I don't like about it is how it's opened up this even more of a me society, right? Where you're losing the team aspect, you're losing the loyalty. The transfer portal, I think, is destroying college sports, especially like with your big power conferences. It's pretty much impossible to compete against these big time schools that have these massive budgets, have this massive exposure, because like an NIL deal for, an average person is nice, but it's nowhere compared to the big power schools where, like here in Chicago, Caleb Williams, I think his NIL deal last year was like $8 million. It's like, it's insane how much money these kids are making. And that's the pendulum swinging too far that way, because not only is their school paid for, so they're ahead of the curve that way. They're $8 million. That's great for them. I'm happy for them. I hope they use that to their advantage. But so many people don't have that. You think college athletics and you immediately think that person went to school for free, and that's not the case. So being able to offset the cost of school, athletics, and have some income, I think is a great thing.
Are you working with any college athletes now? Are you in that program?
We haven't had that as part of our vertical yet into the company, but that's something we definitely want to get into. We have a really good pipeline with a lot of athletes just from my coaching career. And we want to do that. We really didn't have the tools to do that up until about a year ago. We got into the DTG and DTF game. Which
is a good transition. I think I've talked about enough sports for the day.
Okay.
We're going to get into a realm that I will just be nodding along because I don't follow along to sports too much. But I appreciate all of this. And I think it's a great opportunity for students and a great opportunity for the apparel space
for sure.
Because it just keeps it growing and growing. But you brought up DTG and DTF. And so Apparel Redefined is broken into separate companies to showcase your service offerings. And I was kind of going through your website. You have Swift Stitch, DecoForge, ProPrint, QuickPack, LaserDeck, Transfer, FuseFlex, FastFlex, DigiPrints, banners. I don't know if I got all those right. But can you explain the breakdown and how they're expressed to your customers and kind of how do you choose between all of the service offerings?
Yeah, so it starts back from the origin story, right? Like we were always a contract decorator, still are. Our motto is sell more, stress less. We want our clients to be able to do what I do, which is never say no. You know what I mean? And it really got us into trouble in the beginning. But I knew to be the best partner for our clients, when you come to us, in the beginning, it was like, hey, we'll do your screen print, but for embroidery, you got to go somewhere else. And like, those are the two, bread and butter services. So like, we got to start offering embroidery. So as years passed and technologies evolved, we just wanted to make sure that for our clients, they don't have to say no, especially in athletics. You know what I mean? Team shops, Order My Gear, Chipley's of the world, everyone having their e-commerce sites. The dealers and, the people that are facilitating these stores were terrified because they would put out like a 7-color sign and they might only sell one. And what do? You refund? Do you, somehow get that made? And then we would come down to us and it's like, you got 5 pieces for a 4-color job. Like that's going to cost you and we'll do it. But we just, the situations have evolved and changed and we've been able to add more technology, more offerings. But yeah, it all stems from wanting to be the best partner for our clients so they can sell more, stress less. And we have the tools to say, hey, we're not going to give you a screen printed shirt on 5 pieces, but it'll be DTF and it's going to be the highest quality possible. So they can, have the offerings for their clients as well. But yeah, so the naming, it can confuse people. But internally, we want to be proud of what we do. I think screen printing, embroidery, sewing for sure. I don't want to say they're dying arts, but they're not recognized arts. Like it's a serious skill. You think about, we're talking about football, and I promise we'll talk about most sports after this, but the Jordan elite version of Nike jerseys, blank, those are worth $200, and we got to add 7 locations of decoration on that and then get it out, so not only is it an expensive blank, it also takes like 8 to 9 weeks to produce overseas and get to us. So you can't mess it up because Friday Night Lights is Friday Night Lights. You can't deliver on Saturday. So there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of skill involved in every deco type. So we sat down with our department heads and it's like, hey, we're more than just screen printers. We're professional screen printers and we turn into pro print. Embroidery, usually when people order embroidery, the actual mind space of where people are at is like embroidery is going to be a lot slower. And it's like, okay, let's change it around. We're going to be fast. And, we're going to be fast. We're going to deliver high quality. So Swift Stitch. So we kind of went through all of our deco types and rebranded them, mainly internally, because you want to be proud to be part of a team. Everyone's part of Apparel Redefined, but they're first part of that team that they, whatever deco type they're on. So that's kind of the origin story of the different names for the different industry methods of decoration.
All right. What's the difference between FuseFlex and FastFlex?
Okay, so FuseFlex is the old school DTF, right? It's digital print on a Roland or a wide format onto a heat transfer material, right? Mainly signage, but we actually started doing that for left chests years ago as the material, Lululemon, Nike, Under Armour, all the polos start getting thinner and thinner. And especially like with the popularity of soccer growing, like you get those crests, and that would not embroider well on essentially a moisture management tee. And it might be 8 to 12 colors and a ton of detail, and it's not going to be good for small run screen printing. So we started doing that as FuseFlex. FuseFlex has been since retired, and now it's DigiFlex, which is now our DTF service. And FastFlex is laser cut vinyl, or CAD cut vinyl, I'm sorry. So primarily for online store personalization, when a customer wants to add name and number to a t-shirt, hoodie, whatever, that is the vinyl that we cut and apply for personalization.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You created your own internal sales management system, Nomos.
Did, yeah.
So is there a benefit to having your own system? And I guess we'll talk a little bit about how this has helped workflow, how you decided to create it internally, and a little bit about the customer experience that comes with this.
Sure. So yeah, our software is called Nomos. We developed it. We started developing it probably back in 2016. Because at the time, there wasn't really much out there in terms of software for the industry. And as a contract decorator, there was nothing that we tried that would work. A lot of the stuff that was out there, like the early Shopworks and that type of stuff, was made for like someone that, in my opinion, someone that had a shop and was also doing screen printing in the back. And for us, like the way I kind of, as a contract decorator, we have customers now all over the United States that essentially are trying to send us the same information, but in different formats. And not only is that problematic on the front end, but also on the back end, because we have a very diverse work group from all over the world, and English is not their first language. And being able to convey, the word or the saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, to be able to convey that more visually rather than textually, and assimilate all that information so that no matter where the orders are coming from, our internal work order looks the same every time, no matter what customer it's from. So assimilating that data, uniforming it, and then being able to communicate back to our clients, because in the contract space, two things must happen before an order is produced, and that's inventory received and artwork approved, right? So there's a lot of, prior to Nomos, there was just so much communication, like literally for our customer service team, days and days and hours, and really all they were doing was just responding to emails for information that was like, should be real time. And like, again, I always say like, what I really want to do is reinvent an archaic industry or bring some technology, because we're just getting on board. Like when I talked to my dad, who was in corporate sales for 35 years, 40 years, and, working with the big boys, Javasoft, Sun Microsystems, Oracle. And it's like, wait, you guys don't have that yet? And it's like, no, like SNS, Samar, Broder, like they just are releasing APIs to start talking to systems and having some integrations. So I just knew, like, in order to scale to the level that we want to be, and the company we aspire to be, and lead the nation, country in athletic apparel decoration, that we're going to have to do something different, and I can't wait for it. So we decided to start developing on our own. And yeah, from a client experience, just communicating essential order critical points, inventory received, artwork approved, order complete, communicating turn times. Because with all those deco types that we have, you can't just say our blanket turn time is 5 days, because it's not true. It's different in embroidery, it's different in screen print, it's different in DTG. So we actually, we break down turn times by all deco type, and then we have automations in there that when, during certain times of the year when our cycles get busier and heavier, we extend those automatically, and then it sets actual due dates based on our internal turn time. So we're telling the customer when we promise to get it done, rather than kind of like the old school way that we did for 13 years. It was like someone would say, hey, can you do it? Like, yeah. And just not really knowing what that meant, but just saying yes. It's like no other real business works that way, but it's very prevalent in screen printing when you just say yes to everything and not really know what that means. So yeah, we've built in a lot of logic. We have our capacities and our systems now telling us like when we can get stuff done based on current production levels. We have to bring up, more capacity through overtime, add more people. So yeah, it's been very instrumental in our growth. And there's the nice thing about having it to ourselves is we get a lot of client feedback because they're on it, they're using it, they're interacting, and they say, hey, it'd be really nice if you do this. And it's not like I have to go through someone else and say, hey, can you do this? No, it's our software. Yeah, we'll get it done. Now, the development, the spend is absolutely significant. But again, it's an essential part of our business now that has really got us to where we are.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the customer experience and the customer review section of that, because obviously it's such a benefit internally into your processes. But to be able to hear directly from the customer, this is working, this isn't working, that's paramount.
Yeah. Yeah.
So on your site, you mentioned it's not just about what we can do, but how we can do it better. So are you using any types of lean manufacturing or production processes for efficiency?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We coined that phrase probably 6-7 years ago. And it's like, everyone wants to focus on being the biggest. And for us, it was a focus on being the best. And then size will come after that. But it's great to talk about it, but what actually do you do about it? So 5 years ago, we won a grant from Cook County in the state of Illinois. And we really started focusing on our leadership skills because at that point we had eclipsed, I think, like 40 or 45 employees. And on my leadership team, which are seven amazing individuals that have really propelled our growth more than I have ever done, we can't really just say like, hey, we've never done this before. I've never been in charge of a team of 40. I've never been in charge of a team of 10. So we had to level up our leadership and communication skills. So we did like a year-long, like kind of custom MBA program where we focused on communication. We focused on performance evaluations. We focused on recruiting. So your job descriptions, getting everything like kind of buttoned up to scale, and was professionally led by, an HR professional. And then we had like OSHA training. We had all this type of stuff that was great for us. And then, we took that and it was like drinking out of a fire hose for like a year, right? So I'm like, let's put it into practice, because you could just sit there and like back when you're at school, like you hear things and do you really absorb them? Can you put them into practice? Can you touch it, feel it, and start working on it? That's when things start happening. So we took some time off in terms of like professional development. And we got into like one of my personal heroes, Jocko Willink, and we started doing his like discipline equals freedom and doing more leadership based stuff for our team. And then about a year ago, I'm like, listen, I think before we move into our new facility, are we maximizing our space and our capacity here? So let's start talking about lean. And I actually read a book that was all about lean manufacturing. And it was actually given to me by one of my production managers. He's like, I think you'd like this. And I read it. I'm like, it's probably the biggest mistake you ever did, because I'm going to hire a lean process consultant. And we thought it was going to be like a 3-month engagement. He ended up being here for almost a little over a year. And for me, like one of my biggest bottlenecks in the lean world was our inventory receipt. We'll get 600-700 boxes a day. And the way I try and tell people about it when we're hiring is like, if you like jigsaw puzzles, then you're going to like this, because essentially when that truck or trucks back up and they dump off the boxes, it's like a jigsaw puzzle, but not having the picture of like, this is what it looks like, and you got to put this piece in this box to this order and go find existing orders. And these are the replacements coming in. So it is difficult. And that's where Nomos really shines. But it's such a labor intensive, long process. And there was things that I'm like, we need another set of eyes in here, because we can continue to tell our customers to sell and sell and sell, but we got to be able to deliver speed. Right? Because, you talk about 3 things in the service industry: it's speed, it's quality, and it's price, right? It's very rare and very hard to deliver all 3. So we focus on speed and quality. In order to do that, we're like, we need to get better on our inventory process. So we fixed that bottleneck, technology, roller systems, all types of things that like weren't in reinventing the wheel, but just having an outside set of eyes, measuring steps, all that type of stuff. To bring innovation to our inventory team. And then what happens when you start doing lean is like, you just keep pushing that bottleneck down the row, right? So then it goes into staging, then it goes into screens, and it goes actually on a production floor, and it goes in an embroidery and everything. So we kind of flushed through the entire process and just kept finding inefficiencies. But really what lean is and what we've learned from the leadership team is a mindset, right? And how do you continually improve? They talk CIP, continual improvement processes, and getting everyone on the floor to continually look for ways to make their job, their process, everything better. And it takes a long time, right? Because anytime you introduce change, as you know, it's hard for people to digest. It's the first emotion is anger and frustration. Like, why? We've been doing this for 13 years. And then with anger comes resistance, and then the resistance comes either a breakthrough, or sometimes you might have to replace that person, if you're not willing to change, because where we are today is because of the systems and processes we have. If we want to get here, we have to do something different, right? So yeah, our leaders did a really good job, having some of those tough conversations, but then also getting the feedback, because when you implement a new process, it's not the best process right off the bat, especially when you bring someone in that isn't unique to the apparel decoration industry. There's some things that didn't make sense, but we're like, let's try it. Let's prove that it doesn't make sense before we scratch it and try again. So yeah, it was a ton of testing, ton of data collection, but all, really good stuff and like foundational. It's not the end. It's just more of the beginning, and getting the tools to continue to do this on our own as we continue to mature as a company.
Right. And you mentioned a good point. It is very intensive. You thought this person was going to come in for a couple months. They stayed a year. We see this too with sustainability programs like the like SGP, Sustainable Green Printing Partnership. That's a year-long process. This isn't just something that you can try and figure out within a couple months, or really try and figure out yourself. Like, you really need someone to come in and walk you through it. Is it best if you can have someone who has an apparel background? Yeah, but is that always possible? No. So a lot of trial and error, figuring things out, and then also actually working with your production manager, actually working with people who are on the floor, so that they can say, like, this is what we're doing every day, and this is what's going to make it better. And then they also feel like they have a voice in the company. There's just so many different benefits, but so many different steps. And there was a speaker at Print Hustlers conference 2 years ago who spoke on lean manufacturing. And I was just taking down so many notes, just personally, put a little dot on one side of a USB drive. So when you are doing like, there it goes in, no, that's wrong. No, that's wrong. It's like, just have the dot so you put it in the right time, or the way that you load your dishwasher. Now, I'm probably not following the dishwasher rules anymore, but, just like there's so many things that you can do to have a more efficient life and business. So yeah, I'm just kudos to you for implementing that. And I'm sure that your employees are thrilled to have a better way to work.
Yeah. I mean, one of the big things right off the bat is like our inventory team members, and they were a little upset because we were actually doing a Biggest Loser competition at the time. But they were tracking like 4.5 miles a day just from back and forth from the trucks and the inventory lines, and then stacking and moving. So like, it's like, how do you expect to get more boxes counted per day or garments with all of this walking? So like, just physically like moving things around. We didn't have to knock down walls or do anything, but just get the product to the person quicker and more efficient. It was like, oh my God, like, we did all of like the spaghetti charts and the walk. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. If this person needs scissors 27 times a day and the scissors are 27 steps away, how much is that adding to their time and their energy? And yeah, bummer on the steps, because 4.5 miles, that's
I know,
you're probably gonna be healthier, but there are other benefits too.
Yeah, it's really important, talking about working on the business, working in the business, apparel decoration, especially, more on a contract side, just because they're not your deadlines, they're everyone else's. So, inherently, I think as humans, you're always trying to please people, and like, you have literally thousands of people that you're trying to please, and those are just the middlemen, and like the end customer is like, exponentially bigger. So what I'm getting at is like, you're always trying to put others before yourself, and you get caught in the minutia of the daily grind. and it's like, hey, we'll get to it tomorrow because we have all these deadlines we got to hit today, and like we'll work on the business tomorrow. And honestly, that's how it was for 15 out of 18 years. Like really in the last 3 to 4 years, myself and our leaders we had to like take a step back, and it's like, okay, like the production is important, but so is 3 years from now, so is 5 years from now, so is 10 years from now. And where do we collectively want to go, and how are we going to get there? Because heads down, we're not going to get there. We have to take our heads up, look around, evaluate, assess, test, react, and keep on doing that process.
Right. And I keep bringing up things that I've seen on your site, but specifically there are 2 videos, and that you shared them with me, and I noticed they're on your site too, and they're sharing your services, they're sharing your story. And so I do want to ask, the back, like, why did you decide to create these videos? How have they turned your business around? And then there's one thing in the video that I wanted to talk about, so I don't want to forget that. But in terms of creating these videos, how has that benefited your customer experience and knowledge and just kind of word of mouth?
Yeah. It's been more of a mental thing for myself. For me, I don't like the part of the industry that is really going this way, where it's like, I'm just thinking about my son, right? He went to preschool the other day and is show and tell day. And for me, it's like, I don't want to talk about what I have if I'm not comfortable about, what I've done. And it's always been in my head where it's like, I can get better. And I don't want to talk about it until we do, right? I don't want to tell before the show, essentially. Like, I want to be comfortable in the show before I talk about it. And it was in my head, and I met, someone else from the industry, and they came here and they're like, oh my God, like, why are you're always going to feel that you can be better, but you need to start talking about this stuff and be more comfortable, because the biggest fear for me is like being a hypocrite. I don't want to be the person that does the talking and has nothing to back it up. Because I've seen that not just in our industry, and with how easy it is to do this now on your phone, put it out on social media, people can live a lie, and I don't like that. So getting out of my own head, because not only from a customer standpoint, but from an internal customer, our employees, we want to project the company that we are and that we will be. And, I think everyone that's probably hopefully going to listen to this podcast can understand and appreciate how hard it is to find really good people to work in a company. And it's a very labor intensive industry. You need people to get stuff done. Even with all the innovations that come in the last 4 or 5 years, you're totally reliant on good people. And how can we attract and retain better people if I'm not talking about the company? Because really, for 16 out of the last 18 years, we've existed in the shadows. And mainly, that's your job as a contract decorator. Like, your clients really don't want other people to know about you because they're where it'll impact their turn times. So yeah, we're like, hey, let's come out of the dark ages, kind of, hey, this is what we're going to do. We've never marketed. We just started like doing a little bit of marketing, actually about 2 months ago. So yeah, it's more of, let's do something different, because what we were doing before, put a lid, personally on our development and also on the company, and for me, success for me is a success, not only for our clients, but more importantly for our team members, right? Like, it's so rewarding to see, some of my people have been with me 17, 18 years. Nick's been with me the entire time. Phenomenal. Everyone on the leadership team has been with me for over 7 years. And collective success, there's no greater, feeling of that. Like, again, coming from sports, like winning a conference, winning a championship, even at the coaching level. And that's where I feel like, seeing all of this success and the ups and the downs, and there's tons of downs, but getting through it together is so rewarding. So yeah, I kind of forgot what the original question was.
Well, I think the statement is there's no I in team, right?
Yeah, for sure.
We learned that in grade school. But no, I mean, you were kind of talking about how, you don't want to be living a lie or hypocritical, but the thing that I wanted to bring up in one of the videos is I saw a banner hanging in your space that said Entrepreneur named you best company in 2019. So 1, congratulations.
Thank you.
And 2, there's obviously, a reason for that. And I think it's everything that we've talked about so far, but maybe you can expand on that award.
Yeah, it was really cool. My cousin owns a business in Indianapolis, and he had won, I think, the year before, and I was just kind of like, dude, it's awesome. Like, what did you do? So he kind of walked me through the process, and then the E360 award team contacted our team and did surveys and did all this. And yeah, it was like a 6-month process, but it was definitely awesome and cool. And to get that recognition, because like, obviously as the owner, you feel that, you believe that, but giving some validation is a really great feeling, so it was cool. And it's definitely nice to have that hang in our showroom. And but I think one of the other things I want to touch on from your previous question about the move to video as well. So again, the generation, like, you can either complain about it or you can accept it, right? And I even find myself, like, you get a kid's toys, you get a desk, or you get something, and it's like you look at a booklet of directions and it's like, I could just go to YouTube and I can find something and watch a video. Because I think most people, more than not, are visual learners compared to, reading and writing, because I think those skills are lacking in America right now. But everyone knows how to watch a video. And I feel like we redid our entire internal onboarding. We made it all video because, again, like, as the company grows, there's less interaction that myself will have with everyone on the floor. It's kind of one of the, again, the dichotomy of things. I hate to keep going back to it, but like, I don't have the time to spend with everyone like I did when we had 10 employees, even 20 employees, even 30. And it's just getting different now. So how do you communicate that to the person coming in that doesn't know where we came from and doesn't know where we're going and doesn't know what our core values are, our mission statement, that type of stuff. So it's like, let's get in the video and have everyone go through the same process. Because that's the other thing in screen printing and embroidery and contract decorating. Most of the times when you hire, you're hiring out of panic. Like, oh my God, we have all these orders. How are you going to get done? And the person comes in, they hit the floor, and it's just a fire drill from day one. And that's how we operated for a long time. And like, we need to change that. So getting into video, getting comfortable in front of video was something I just had to overcome and embrace, because it's not going anywhere. And I do feel like it's very important. So I just had to get on my own damn head.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting that you bring up. I'm a visual learner as well. I was putting together this lamp behind me the other day, and it's like, I'm reading the instructions and it's just like gibberish to me. I'm just like, show me the illustration or whatever. I can figure it out from there. But I had an interesting conversation a couple weeks ago with a print shop owner and then a manufacturer in this space. And we were talking about lean and the benefits of using video. So if one of your staff members is new or forgets or whatever, they can scan a QR code on their phone and watch a video on how it's done.
Awesome. Yeah.
So awesome. But on the other end, the manufacturer said they're not allowed to have phones on the floor. So it was an interesting conversation to see, how can you use that? Do you have iPads where they can click, and watch that? But I think the basis of that is there's a way to show people how it's done, whether they are new, they don't remember, they need a refresher. And to use video for that just seems like a no-brainer. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and the cell phone policy, like, we've waffled on that over 18 years. But the way I operate is like, day one, I don't care if I know you or not, you get full trust, and it's up to you to break it or strengthen it. You know what I mean? So we just say, hey, if you abuse it, you're going to lose it type thing. And it does happen, and unfortunately, when it does happen, we have to, write up and do all that unfun stuff, but necessary. But yeah, it's, especially now with how fast life is. And, I would hate to say someone's on my floor and they need to get a call from their wife or their kid's sick or this or that. So it's like, I'm not going to be that person. And just, if I'm treating you with that respect, I just expect the same back. And for the most part, it's worked very well that way. Yeah. I was having a similar conversation about that in terms of unlimited PTO and of how some people, it's like the taking advantage of a situation. It's like, let's have trust and respect that you're not going to take advantage of the situation, but just know that if you do, maybe it is an unlimited PTO, or maybe in this instance, you can't have your phone on the floor anymore. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk DTF. Okay. This year you added DTF in-house. So can you tell me about this journey? What led you to bringing it in-house? What it's like? what it's been like so far?
Yeah. So the journey started about 3 years ago, probably 2. Kind of coincided with the end of our DTG journey and the beginning of the DTF. So they're very similar in what we did. We visited or tested all the manufacturers in DTG, same with DTF, essentially because we're screen print snobs. And for me to put our company's name behind a product, service, experience, it's got to be top notch. And what we experienced, like in the infancy of DTF and DTG, was not good. The feel was bad. The durability was horrible. And it's a new technology, and that's to be expected. So we did a lot of testing, a lot of wash testing, but then also, being a contract shop, production's key. If it looks good and it feels good, but it takes a minute and a half to press, you're not going to get much done, right? So the also relationship with the manufacturer, it's not if it breaks, it's when it breaks. Are you going to have confidence and consistency of supply in such a new, literally Wild West of industry? And then you just got to hear all the noise. It's the same noise that you heard 10 years ago when DTG came in. This is going to replace screen print. Now you're hearing it even again and more and louder that DTF is going to replace screen print, and it's not. It has its purpose, and it's very good, and it's very agile in terms of all the different materials it can go on, not like DTG, but there's still limitations. And it's getting better, and it will continue to improve. But yeah, we weren't just going to settle on, the lowest price or the mid ground. We needed it to meet not just my expectations, because I have people on my team that are even more quality stringent than I am. And if it didn't meet like Derek's expectations or Nick's or Jamie's, like it wasn't going to fly. But as it started getting better and we started having more talks and we started talking to the ink manufacturers and who they're recommending and this and that, and we invited people in, and then just more kind of downward pressure from not the end user, because the end user really doesn't, if it's done well, they shouldn't know. Now it's your job, I think, as a decorator and a salesperson to communicate to them that this is not screen print. You're not selling them a screen print, because I think that's disingenuous. But more of the middle person, the dealers and those type of people, where it's like, hey, I want to be able to sell a team shop 24/7, 365. I want no minimums. I want full color. And you're starting to get that pressure. So like, okay, we got to react, but we're not going to react with just whatever. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you kind of, you're bringing up a lot of good points. The Wild West of printing. I mean, it's also new, trying to figure out, 3 years may seem like a long time of you figuring that out, but it's not, because it's so new.
Yeah.
But I am curious, with your experience with digital printing for vinyl signs and campus prints, has this helped you on the technical side at all with bringing DTF in-house, just because there is that digital component?
It has, but again, introducing adhesive to the system, that's not done with signs and banners and that type of stuff. And the other thing with signs and banners and that digital space, color consistency isn't as important as apparel. That sign and banner, you're probably not making 500 of them, and then everyone's going to be standing side by side where, holding a banner. That's not normal. So it was, you could do the color matching within a certain gamut and get that, but it wasn't as important as it is now for apparel. And then repeatability, like a sign goes outside, it's expected to lose some of its color saturation over 2 or 3 years or whatever. And you get a new sign. But apparel is a whole different ballgame, and you're adding another component of adhesive, pressing. You're not pressing a sign, So yeah, there's similarities. It's a good foundation, but it's definitely not the whole course.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you have 2 machines now, is that correct? Yeah. And how long have you had them running?
The second machine just arrived, and the first machine we've had since late January, early February.
So far, how are you thinking? Major challenges, major benefits?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, again, I try to stay pretty even keeled as I age, where people like overreact. This is the best thing in the world, or it's the worst thing in the world. It's probably somewhere in the middle. Like I said, it has a space, in terms of you starting to see like decorating for athletics. The majority of our orders are anywhere from like 24 to 72 pieces, somewhere in there, because you're tied to the size of the team sport. So a lot of that stuff under 50 pieces, we're moving to DTG with the customer's approval. I'm sorry, DTF with the customer's approval. What we do notice, because we have press times under 5 seconds, we can do that on a multitude of different garment types and fabrics. I still think the feel of like a full front on a blend or cotton tee doesn't feel as nice as a DTG or a screen print. Left chest, especially on polos like soccer style logos, it's phenomenal. And actually on 100% poly, I feel like the feel is even better than a screen print, because it's like plastic on plastic, and it just kind of like rolls under your fingers and it feels really good. Some of the challenges, like this industry is in for it. It's in for it because color is like space frontier. It's even way crazier than the Wild Wild West, right? Because there are so many different components to getting that color right. Like I think a lot of people, they see the DTF game like, oh my God, because like the Cricket came first, right? And for like whatever, a couple grand or even less, you could start making t-shirts. Now DTF comes in, and at Printing United, when we were in Atlanta, God, there had to be 50 different vendors selling DTF equipment, right? And wild ranges of prices. Like I saw as low as like 12 grand all the way up to 50 to 60, and depending on the size of the machine, over 100 grand. So there's a vast array of opportunity. But again, one of the things in this industry that kind of upsets me, but it's also the reason I got in, is there's really low barriers to entry, right? And how do you separate yourself from essentially the competition, or, even as a company, like how to get to that next level when the barriers to entry are so low. And this kind of, for a while, the barriers to entry were starting to climb up, and it was a little bit harder to get in. But now that completely reset the clock, and now you can get in for 13 grand and start making t-shirts, essentially full color. Where before it was like, yeah, you could do on DTG tabletop, you could probably do like maybe just white shirts, or maybe just, some blends, and you were limited in your scope of what you could actually offer. Now DTG completely changes, or DTF completely changes that. But are people really aware of humidity, temperature, digital maintenance? I mean, we have a maintenance team essentially that's doing our DTG and DTFs, and like you could have variance in the color intraday and within the same profiles from the rip, but machine to machine, even if they're in the same room with the same climate temperatures, you could have variance in color. And why that's important is, especially for athletic clients, right? That coach has been coaching high school baseball, high school basketball for 20 years, whatever. They've been used to that orange or that red or that gold, and they don't know or care how it's getting done, but it shows up to them on their hoodie or on their t-shirt or on their jersey, and it's been the same gold since they've been a customer of whatever company they're buying from. And then all of a sudden it comes and it's not the same gold and it's not the same orange, because it's done by someone that didn't do it, that was closer to the region as using DTF, and it's a problem. And which much different in the analog world of screen print, when you get your PMS value and you look and it's this percentage of red and this percentage of yellow and this and that, and you can actually mix it. It's theoretical in the digital world, and like that's a starting point. It's not an end point, and you have to like kind of figure it out. And even when you do figure it out, if you change the film, if you change your adhesive, if you change your temperature settings, your color profiling has to be redone. So it's like a very quick, very flexible solution, but in terms of like proper execution, it's very time consuming, and it's a lot it's a lot harder than people think. And again, it's not the silver bullet for everything, but it is really good technology. And we're in its infancy stages, right? It's going to get better, but you really need to focus on it and work on it.
Yeah, it's definitely not just a turnkey solution. And so many people ask, well, I'm buying X amount of transfers. Does that mean I should bring DTF in-house? And it's like, that's not the only question you should be asking yourself. Right. There's a lot that goes into it, especially on the maintenance and the environment, that I think people are maybe not considering as much, because there are a lot of small business owners who are having DTF equipment in their own home, in their basement, in their living room. So it is possible to do this on a very small scale, but you mentioned so many different things, humidity. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it that people need to consider. So I guess that would be, my next question, what are your tips for others, who are considering entering this space? It took you 3 years to get to where you are now.
Yeah, I would challenge people to consider first, like your market, what's important to them. Because if it's color and you have repeat customers expecting that same color, you really want to pick someone that they're going to control the variables for you, or at least notify you. I've heard horror stories from, friendly competitors in the industry. They have 12, 14 DTF machines and their supplier changed their film and they didn't tell them. And it's not ever going to come back to the original film that they have. And now we have this new film, and they spent weeks dialing in hundreds of colors for athletic clients, and it was all gone. And they didn't really realize it until they started sending out orders, and the customer's like, hey, this gold is not the same gold, because like you have a team running and cutting and pressing, and it's just like get it in, get it out. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, these are all off. And they're rifling through. Is it the rip? Is it this? Is it that? Is our heads? Are they not good? And then all of a sudden it's like, no, the film changed and it changed everything. So what I'm getting at is, if your client is or your client base are repeat customers like schools, and they have, very specific color sets, make sure you know what you're doing, and make sure you have a good supplier and partner. It's not just a supplier, it's a partner that's going to help you go through all the color matching that's going to be 100% necessary. And then communication, because again, none of this stuff is really made here, unfortunately. And when you are sourcing overseas, you get price, but you don't get quality all the time. And that could change in an instant, and that's going to really affect things. Another tip is understand what's important for you. If you don't need to do or apply, thousands of transfers a day, then you probably don't have to pay for something that's going to be able to press in 3 seconds. If you're only going to be doing, a couple hundred, maybe you're at the point where maybe you don't need a machine, because these machines need to run every day for long periods. Otherwise, you're going to dry out your heads and your machine becomes useless. And we'll see it on Facebook Marketplace, like we used to see all those tabletop DTGs. But yeah, just make sure that it's running. You have really good support from your partners, and that you have people that are dedicated and understand that there is a maintenance component. It's not screen print where you're done with the job, shut the lights off, turn off the dryer, turn off the flashes, and go home. There's more to it, especially if you want to get return on investment on your investment, and that's essentially what it is. And understand too, I think, like, you even see it from the suppliers. Like, everyone, I'm sure on this podcast, have heard of this company. S starts in an S, ends in alls. And before we got our DTF machine, that was delayed multiple months, we had started offering DTF as a service, but we were ordering from them. And during this color navigation and process that we're doing, we couldn't hit a certain color here for a while. So we're like, hey, we'll just order it from them, because that's who we did this order from. Big disclaimer on the website now: we cannot guarantee colors that were ordered previous. Even if you submit a PMS color, you submit a hex color, RGB, CMYK, whatever it is, they're not guaranteeing it. So it's like, that's not good. And it just shows that is a major challenge in this industry.
Right. And what you said about finding a partner, you said vendor and then actually partner. I think that is so important too. We actually have an article on DTFprinting.com about what to look for when finding a vendor. And I think that it's so much more than the right printer. It's that customer service. Are they going to be helping you with education, educating your customers? It's really important to find a vendor that connects well with you and that you can trust and have that back and forth with, especially if something goes down, because that was a big issue, 3-4 years ago when everything was overseas and that communication was just kind of impossible, or in the middle of the night or something like that. So now having people that you can trust and work with is so important. And, there's a lot of conversations happening on the Facebook groups and kind of people, pushing their own agendas, things like that, so make sure that when you're searching for a printer, you're really focusing in on that customer service and that trust, which I'm sure you found, over the last 6 months, 7 months.
Sure. Another thing to consider too, and that's not unique to digital, but very unique to analog, is there's a third party involved that no one knows about, and that's the RIP. So making sure your partner has a good relationship with the RIP, because that's something that it's unbelievably important and unbelievably like mystifying to a person like me, where it's like, this is the PMS color. Why can't it print it this color? And how that RIP software integrates with your graphic software and then also with the output is extremely important. And there's industry leading RIPs out there that have a full staff and they have support and they're working with these partners that are selling DTF. But that's a huge component of it that the average distributor has no idea about, because it's very, very technical. Yeah,
that's a really good point. Wait, and then on your site, I would just have a question. I'm noticing digital fusion and thermal digital printing, and I'm seeing that when it's connected to a heat transfer. Are you using that terminology, or are you using the term DTF with your customers, or do they not have a clue what any of this means?
Yeah, again, like when you're heads down and you think this sounds like a good idea, and now that we've been doing more outreach and people are starting to get confused, we're learning that, hey, we just got to maybe not reinvent the wheel and just, or just put digital fusion is DTF. Because like technically back before DTF, we had, like you said, fast flex, fuse flex, and then digital fusion was actually a different process because it was a different film that we used that would adhere to like swimwear, nylon garments, and all that. So it was like, it wasn't technically the same as the other two, but I think we got too specific and probably too vague for the average middle, dealer to understand. So yeah, that's thanks for pointing it out. We got to change that.
Because some people are like, we're not using, like I was with Epson this past weekend and they're like, we're calling it DT film. They're not saying DTF. So I was just curious, like, is there going to be another phrase that's happening in the industry? But I am curious overall, do your customers care what process of print that you're using? Do they have a say in this, or is it completely up to you and your team?
No, they have a say. And really, like from a contract side, each customer is uniquely different. Even within like a certain company, and a company has 1,200 reps or 10 reps, each one of those reps has a different preference. Some, I don't care what you do, get it done fast. So it's like other people are like, no, absolutely not. My coach or my company has always had screen print or embroidery, do not change it. So really it's just that communication with our customer, who's the salesperson, and then we're trusting that salesperson is having communication with their end user as well. But if we get, if we're telling our customers, if it's under 6 pieces, we're going to default, or under 12, we're going to default to DTF unless you tell us not to. And we've been doing that now for about 3-4 months, and we haven't had an issue.
That's cool. Well, do you have any other thoughts on DTF printing now that you have it in-house?
I'm excited for the future. Everything gets better. Like I said, DTG, screen print, just in our screen room, like there's been so much advancement in screen in the pre-press room in the past 5 years, going from like old school cutting rubylith way back in the day when I started, to film, and then to wax. Then to the eye image, and then to wax, and now to laser. It's amazing. And I came in like late to the pre-press game, but like I feel like we're on the forefront of the DTG and DTF game, and then like reintroducing new adhesives to get a better feel. We're working with, our partner on that. On the output side, the innovation that's coming there from once that roll comes off, what do you do to quickly get that chopped up and processed and staged to your garments? To the pressing side, you're seeing every manufacturer come out now with like rotary heat presses, similar to, old school manual print carousels. So yeah, I'm excited to see how the innovation continues to push forward from all different parties. I'm also, I don't want to say anxiously awaiting, but I do think I would say it's going to take 18 months or so to have a market correction in terms of DTF is just flooding the space right now, right? And you're going to see issues with adhesion. You're going to see issues with colors. You're going to see issues with durability, wash fastness, because again, there's so many players in the market right now. Not all of them are guaranteeing quality. So you're going to see it like, hey, you're going to have certain clients that like, hey, whatever you gave me, I don't ever want to see again. It fell off. The colors were crap. It didn't feel good. Give me a screen print. So like right now, screen printers are probably a little panicky or nervous, where it's like, oh my God, everyone and their brother can do what I do without any skill, in terms of, pressure, consistency, screen creation, all that type of stuff. But it will come back, not as much, but it will come back, I think, in about 18 months, when all these early adopters are kind of pushed out of the market, I guess. Okay.
Well, thank you, John. I learned a ton. Thanks really not only for sharing your DTF journey, but sharing the business side, the production side. I think that can sometimes get lost in these conversations. And I think for the apparel industry as a whole, business 101 should be, just taught. And so it's really interesting to learn all the different facets of what goes on at Apparel Redefined.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. It was great talking to you, and I really enjoyed this.
Great. All right. Well, you can find Apparel Redefined at apparelredefined.com and at Apparel Redefined on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. We'll catch you on the next episode of the DTF Printing Podcast. In the meantime, head to dtfprinting.com to discover new ways to grow your DTF print business. Thanks for listening.